The third broad area under which we can discuss consumer behavior is the external determinants. These determinants or factors affect the individual determinants, filtering through them to have an indirect impact on the decision-making process. Remember that there are 4 stages in the decision-making process, and there are 5 individual determinants that have a direct impact on this decision-making process. So these 6 external determinants are those factors that have an indirect impact on the decision-making process by filtering through the individual determinants. These are 1. Culture's influence, subculture influence, social class influence, social group influence, family influence, and other situational influences. So the culture's influence talks about how the sum total of knowledge, beliefs, traditions, morals, art, habits, and the language of a people can impact the individual determinants, that is, their perceptions, their self-concept, personality, their learning and memory, and all of the other individual determinants we mentioned earlier. So for example, while it may be normal to spend a fortune on flowers in one culture, in another culture it may seem like a waste of money. So you can see how here a culture can influence an individual's perception. It can influence an individual's sense of personal involvement with a good or a product or a service. Then you also have subculture's influence, which is, just the sense of diversity within a culture. So while we may have African culture as a whole, we also have Nigerian culture, we have Ghanaian culture, South African culture, and even within those cultures there are, subcultures as well, right? For example, while in Ghana it may be normal to eat 3 eggs or 2 eggs per meal per day, in Nigeria we may see that as a bit of overconsumption just because of the culture's influence. So you also have social class influence. So social class just refers to the number of people who share more or less the same status in society. They have similar beliefs and patterns, behavior, and consumption. So the norm of a given social class has a major bearing on one's members' buying behaviors. That simply means that the behaviors of the social class in which you belong will have a great impact, or the general behavior to be expected of that social class would have an impact on your perceptions, your your attitudes, your beliefs, your perceptions, the way that you can determine whether a good is personally relevant to you or not, your motivations even, and thus through that impact on those personal or those individual determinants, it has an indirect impact on the decision-making process. Because for example, if all cleaners have some sort of unspoken consensus between themselves that they buy Dano milk instead of pig milk, there's a high likelihood that if you belong to that social class, you're likely to go for Dano milk, because maybe in terms of your self-concept or in terms of your personal involvement, you believe that, pig milk doesn't really have anything to do with me, let me go and buy my Dano milk, JJ, that kind of thing. So you also have your social group influences, so things like church, school, ISEC, whatever groups you belong to, So a collection of people that share a common identity and a sense of relationship based on interaction with one another. That is what we mean when we talk about a social group. There is usually an in-group and an out-group for every dimension, including consumer behaviors. So whether you're talking about political party, football club, religion, gender, whatever group you belong to, there's always going to be an out group. So if I'm in the group of girls, there's going to be an out group of boys. If I'm in a group of Arsenal fans, there's going to be an out group of Manchester United fans, and so on. So even with consumer behavior, you have a sense of in-group and out-group. For example, one group of a certain political view on the Israel-Palestine conflict may decide to boycott Starbucks because there is the notion that Starbucks has affiliations with Israel and supports Israel in the Israel-Palestine conflict. So one group of people may decide, oh, because of that reason, we're boycotting Starbucks, we're not buying coffee from Starbucks anymore. But the other set of people, maybe in this instance, the out group of those who do support, Israel or do support whatever, would decide that no, we're still gonna buy Starbucks. In fact, we're going to invest in Starbucks so that they can continue to have the money to fund whatever causes they support. So you would find that the in-group, out-group notion does come into play with consumption. So you have family influences as the fifth external determinant. So the people that care for you or nurture you, these people have great impact and influence on your personality, on your attitudes, on your learning, on your self-concept. I mean, a lot of us develop and hold on to labels and tags that have been given to us by our mothers, our siblings, our fathers, and these labels come up, forming core elements in our self-concept and thus directly impacting the types of goods that we believe are relevant to us. For example, if a person's family members consistently call them ugly or whatever, or constantly tell them that their skin is too dark, for example, their self-concept would be impacted by that, and they would believe that, oh, indeed, my skin is too dark, and then they may be more susceptible to buying, let's say, bleaching creams and lightening products and so on. Not necessarily because having a family member say that your skin is too dark equals to you buying bleaching cream directly. No, it filters through the individual determinant of your self-concept, your perception, your learning, your attitude, and so on. So you would find that a person's nurture environments have a large bearing on their consumer behavior, as I've just mentioned. And the last external determinant, which we just mentioned as other situational factors, also other situational influences such as pricing. While all of those factors also play a role, pricing definitely plays a role, because even if you may not really see a good as being personally relevant to you or being ready to fulfill your need, the fact that the good is maybe 50% off or it's for free, you may be more likely to consume that product, right? If it's at a crazy cheap price. For example, I know that Temu was running ads on, I think if you order 3 products you get free shipping or something. So you might begin to pick things that you don't even really need just because of the fact that, okay, the price is low. So that's just an example of another situational factor that can impact the decision-making process by filtering through the individual determinants. We're going to look at, in the next tutorial, zooming on the individual determinants, starting with perception.